introduce our next speaker for today. Please can the bio come up, please? Okay. Our next speaker is the person of Babajide Adejumo. Jide is a certified senior human resource practitioner. He is currently a manager in the PwC's People and Organization Advisory Practice Team. Prior to joining PwC, Jide led projects as senior consultant in another Big Four firm before leading HR transformation at a top insurance company. He has successfully led and delivered several HR assignments, including HR transformation, deployment of various HR solutions, HR strategy, development, talent management, and framework for clients. Please, let's make welcome Babajide Adejumo.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much, sir. After what David has done, I'm wondering what is left for me to say. It's just for me to say, well done, and start going back home. All right, please let's put our hands together for David one time, once again. All right, so my name is Babajide Adejumo, as I've said. I think one of the things that he took out in trying to summarize my profile is I studied mass communication in University of Lagos. And for some years, I was a radio presenter. IMC events at some point, but I had to stop that because of work. So it's a big honor to be here today, to at least be engaging with every one of you, plus those that are online. Thank you very much for the opportunity. The title has been put before me is The Power of Storytelling. Why do we need to learn how to tell stories? And what is the power behind actually telling stories? Let me start off with about 10 years ago when I was at the age of some of you here. Of course, not at his own age or his, but at the age of some of you here where you had just finished school and you're looking for a job. You can go to the next slide because that's where I'm on now. Before getting into school, one of the things that happened was I was going to apply to University of Lagos, and my mom, my sister, my cousins, they were all like, don't apply. We've all tried to get into Unilag for like 3-4 years and got rejected. So if you don't want to wait at home for another 3 years, it would be better if you just apply to other schools, because Unilag, you won't get in. But being my stubborn self, I applied to University of Lagos, first choice, second choice. And when I got back home, my mom said, Jide, this your stubbornness will take you nowhere. Lo and behold, in my first attempt, I got into University of Lagos. Right? And all my cousins, my sister, they were like, oh, how did you do it? I don't know. To be honest, I did all I needed to do, but above all, it was more of my commitment to the work of God. And this is being honest. I remember back then, we would get on the yellow buses to go for rehearsal at Ebute Meta. That's RCCG headquarters. I used to attend Redeem back then. And there would be no space in the bus, so we'll sit at the booth. 2 or 3 of us of the this downfall bus that you see now. And in that booth, we'll be the one leading praise and worship at the back there for everyone in the bus. And I had the opportunity of playing the role of God in a play in Redemption Camp when they were doing the opening ceremony for convention. And while I was seated on the altar at the Redemption Camp, I said a prayer about my admission. God, so when we were doing all the whole God and I had to sit down and be acting as God, I was making a prayer that I'm sitting where Pastor Adeboye gives his sermon. Lord, let my admission come to pass. And it did come to pass. And so the only explanation I could give was the fact that God was with me. But the next story I'm going to share is my journey to getting my first job. So I had finished school, and you know how we just shoot our CVs everywhere. You don't even know where you're applying to. You just see an opening, and you shoot your CV. I shot my CV to a place that I saw invites for tests. I didn't know what the test was about, but on this fateful day, I woke up and said, okay, I have test today. And I went to the venue, which was Unilag, Multipurpose All A, B, and C, to write the test for an organization I didn't know much about, so I didn't really care. Let me just write it since I'm looking for a job. And on getting there, I saw over 1,000 persons, around the vicinity coming to write this same test. And I asked myself, what's going on here? I thought it was just some random company. And right there, because I finished from the University of Lagos, I saw people that finished with first class, economics, accounting. I said, Judy, just do what you can do, and when you are done, you can go home. At least you've what's the word? You've satisfied all you've come and you've seen. And I went in to show how unserious I was giving a comment on one of the invigilators saying, "Whoa, your research is very nice." When I'm supposed to be writing tests, to show how serious I was. But something happened in that test hall. While I was serving in Calabar, I stayed in the winner's family house. And while we were there was a young man that was writing his test to get into University of Ibadan for his master's. And he got stuck in some of the past questions. And I had to help him out with that particular question. And it was a Concord English question around Concord. And I learned the principle there and applied it for him, and we got all the answers correctly. The way God works, while I was serving, God had instructed me that, your laptop, which was my priceless property. My laptop then, my dad bought for me when I was year one, and I was using that to make money because I was doing voiceover, I was a radio artist, I was doing jingles, and I was making money working with that laptop. And God had said, drop that laptop in church. I asking God, is it you speaking? Or is there another voice? Should I ask again? How many of you remember the story of Gideon? Where he took the cotton out and said, God, if it's you, let it be dry. He took it again and said, no, Lord, if it's you, let it be wet again. And I cried, took the laptop, and I dropped it during one of the Sunday services. And when I got into the exam hall, I knew that was the test I was going to write. I knew that this was it. I saw the question, and it was the question I had practiced with that young man that was writing his test to get into University of Ibadan. Lo and behold, when I stepped out, not knowing the company and I had just written their test, I'd seen a colleague of mine. I was like, why is there too many people here? The guy was like, don't you know this company? I'm like, what is it about the company that people are so much? He said, this is a Big Four accounting firm, Ernst & Young back then. I'm like, what do they do? I was like, you came to write tests. You don't know the company. And right there, and then I started checking on my phone to know. And when I saw how big they were, like they were in all the countries, I'm like, it's time to take this thing serious. And lo and behold, I passed, and I was invited for the assessment center. And my brother told me something. He said, it's not your type that they recruit here. And he said that not from a place of hate or a place of to downplay me. It was like people that get into these kind of organizations have to know people. You have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. But I was a boy from a home with a single mom that were barely surviving. So I did not know even the gate man at EY. I don't know anybody. But I know someone. Right? I know someone. And on that day, I wore the suit I had bought at Yaba that was oversized and had to slim fit. I wore my suit. I remember then I even dyed my hair so I would look like a sharp boy. I had that one shirt, that one trousers. I owned it well. I had one shoe my uncle had given me that I've worn from year 1 to year 4. I wore that shoe on top of it. And I was looking very sharp, or so I thought. And I went for the interview. And they asked me a question during that interview. They said, in this organization, we recruit people especially from economics, engineering, because of the kind of work we do, accounting. Why should we recruit you from Department of Mass Communication? And I had to tell a story. 2 stories I told. One was on the importance of communication, and then 2, how, as a circulation manager for my department, Masscom, I had sold 4,000 newspapers, where the last set was struggling to sell 2,000 newspapers. And I told them how I put my strategy in place, how I went about doing it, accounting for all of the money, and selling 4,000 newspapers. And whether that was the reason or not, I got the job. right? I got the job and I started my career out in a global Big Four, an account, Ernst& Young. Telling you this story, one of the most important things was in that room, what was going to decide my faith or whether I was going to get into this company or not was how I could tell my what? My story. And of all the stories that I had to look for the one that was very apt for the particular situation I was in, which was, what can I do and what makes my communication skill stand out? And that was when I realized that story is a powerful tool that people like Martin Luther King Jr. said his own story and drove people to take actions. Remember the story, I can't remember the woman now that wouldn't stand up in the bus. I don't even want to remember her name. She was seated in the bus. Blacks, when whites come in, you have to stand up back then. I know you cannot imagine it now. A lot of the young folks are not imagining that when the white person comes into the bus, you have to stand up. And she decided she wasn't going to stand. One of the first black presidents in the United States, I've watched his speech over and over and over again. The stories he told, making the Americans the hero of that story, is one of the major reasons that brought him into the White House. So today, we'll be talking about the power of storytelling. Why should you build that technique in telling good stories? We'll jump into it. Next slide, please. Just a summary. Storytelling is the ability to create narrative. One of the powerful books in the world is what? Anyone? One of the most powerful books in the world is what? The what? The Bible. 99.9% of what is in the Bible are what? Stories. I remember when we were young, we had the book of Bible stories. I don't know if it still exists now. That was one of the most amazing things to read back then. They're stories. This is God that created the heavens and the earth. And to pass a message to us, he's not giving us data, because he could have given us data. He could have given us logic. But what did he give us? Stories. Story of Abraham. The story of Daniel. The story of Jesus. Why did he have to tell us that Jesus was born in a manger? It's so that we can relate with a person called Jesus. When David came up here and talked about his story of having to defend his role to become the deputy head boy, assistant head boy, I remember I had to do the same thing, and immediately I could relate with his story. So stories are basically ability to create narratives. The world is controlled largely by perception, how we perceive Nigeria, how we perceive the job market. My brother had made that statement not out of spite, but out of his narrative about the job market, that you have to know someone, you have to be son of somebody. But my narrative about the job market was based on my own story, which was not the story of what the world was telling me, but the story of what God told me. Right? That was my story. So the first question I'll be asking in the room today is, what is defining the stories around you? 2, what is your story? One of my key stories that has controlled my life over the last almost a decade in my career is that what? I am a royal priesthood. That's my narrative. It's not just a Bible verse for me. It's my narrative. And so when things are not going my way, I bring back my narrative. The power of storytelling. Next slide, please. Why is storytelling so powerful? We'll talk about 4 things on why storytelling is so powerful. 1, stories engage our emotions. Stories engage our emotions. Why are we so passionate about the woman with the issue of blood? Because we understood her story. That she has been suffering for how many years? Anyone? Any Bible scholars here? 12 years with the issue of blood. So when the healing happened, we're able to connect to it. If they just told us that a woman was looking for healing and then she touched the hem of Jesus' garment and she was healed, nobody will really care. So, the Bible, even as a foundation, told a lot of stories. The question I ask again is, what stories are you telling? Secondly, stories better convey meaning. You're able to put more meanings to events based on what? Stories. Two people in the job market, one will say there is no job, ma. Another will say there is job for me. They both are looking at the same job market but have a different narrative. Right? And the story that you tell, there is the law of attraction, is what brings what you want around you. So if you feel like you are the son of nobody and you remain a nobody, that is your story. And the world cannot change your story. Sorry, I'm a very scriptural person, so pardon me to bring that in once in a while. The Bible says that God calleth out things that were not as though they were. So, the question I ask again is, when you wake up on a Monday morning for your week, or the Sunday evening, depending on when you plan for your week, what stories are you speaking about your week? You know, you can write your story for the week. I'll tell you another story. When I joined EY, the narrative between me and my father, God, was that in 5 years, I was going to leave Ernst & Young. And I wrote that story down. I wrote it down. The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain. There's many that sees it with what? Will run. You know, and I wrote it down that in 5 years, I'll be leaving EY. In my first year. On October of the 5th year, I joined in October 2014. October of the 5th year, I'd gotten several offers. And I was like, don't take them. On the 5th year, I got the right offer that took me out of EY. 5th year. Let me extend the story. And I'm in church. When I joined the other company, I had said even to my boss that I'm leaving in 2 years. And I told him the exact company I was going to when I leave the insurance company I was working for. I told my boss. I know, no, they are not. It's not all bosses you can tell that kind of thing. There are some bosses that you can't. So please, I had read my boss. I understood my boss, and I knew that we had that relationship. So I could tell him. And everybody in my team knew that 2 years. This guy has just 2 years to do all the work he wanted to do here. And 2 years on the dot, February, I moved to my new company, the exact company I had said I was going to move to. The power of your narrative. The Bible says that the power of life and death is in what? The tongue. I'm telling you several experiences where I've experienced this. I write my own stories. But because I am not doing it by myself alone, but I'm led by the Spirit of God, I write my story in line with who? My Father. Hello? So why are stories powerful? Stories are powerful once again because they are persuasive. Remember the story of the interview I told you about? What persuaded them was what? The story I told. What story did I tell? So I'm sure you are following me. What story did I tell at the interview for EY? Anyone remember? The newspaper I sold. Thank you. And that story was persuasive that this guy, if he commits himself to something, he can think strategically, one, and two, if he commits himself to something, he would get that thing done. But let me tell you a secret to how I sold those newspapers. When they make me circulation manager, I went to pray. I remember that at the back of chapel. And God gave me a word in the book of, I think, Psalm or Proverb, that it says, I will direct you in the way that you should go. And once he said that, I was in the back of the chapel then when I was writing the entire plan on how I will sell newspaper. In the back of the chapel. And then first he said is organize your team. I formed my team. First I identified the problem of why they were not able to sell. They were staying in one location. So I said, I'm going to position you in different locations. And two of you, there's an accountant back in the department, you go back. It was an entire structure to sell newspaper. But it wasn't revealed to me by my human knowledge. It was my connection with who? With God. So what is defining your story? Is it the government? Is it politics? Is it Lagos traffic? Is it your bank account? Or is it the word of God? This is a church program, so permit me to, if I was in a professional setting, I will just speak English and I will go. But I know that my own real source is not this science. It is finding the right principle from the word of God. So, the fourth thing is that stories are memorable. A lot of time when I want to pray, I say that word. Bible says that Daniel decided in his heart that he would not what? Defile his what? Himself. And I decided to, while I was in school, that God, you gave me this admission. I will not defile myself with examination malpractice. Another story, since we are talking about the power of storytelling. In year one, I had just finished teaching somebody in Lagoon Front a particular exam that we were going to have that morning. I had finished teaching this person. And then I got to the exam hall, sir. I forgot everything I've read and taught. Everything. And I was crying in the exam hall. The young lady that I just finished teaching her, she was shocked. Because I was the one teaching her eloquently. This is it, this is it. And in the exam hall, I had forgotten. She would quickly whisper to me, Jide, you're the one that taught me this, and let me teach you. I said, no. Year one. I said, no. He said, let me just tell you, if I tell you one thing, you remember everything. I said, no. And I took my paper, crying, went to submit to the lecturer. And I cried out. Because I waited, that maybe the thing that flied away will fly back. Okay? It did not fly back, oh. It stayed where it was. But I decided that what? I would not what? Defile myself. I got an E in that course. E. Thank God it wasn't an F. And I never had any F, so it was an E. But then, I stood my ground. But I'll tell you another side of that story. When I started working in EY, I had to write exams, CIPM. And I defiled myself, which is also defiling the agreement I had with God. I did Votron inside exam. There was this other guy who were both in EY, so we're like, we read the same thing, let's do Votron. You know what Votron is? You don't know what Votron is. Let me tell you, Votron is, you know how Votron is to connect? Have you watched Votron? You know what Votron? Oh, sorry. The cartoons now are different. Votron is Transformer, so there are different characters, and they will join together and become one strong giant. So Votron inside exam hall is, you find somebody, and you guys will join together and teach each other in the exam hall. I did that. I defiled myself, and guess what? The young man that we did Votron together passed. I failed. It was not E. You know that when I got E in year one, I had F. Go and rewrite it. Because I had what? Defiled myself. So, I'm telling you the two sides of the story. So it's not like I'm telling you that I'm holier than thou. I am more righteous than anything you find. No. And I didn't learn my lesson. I did it the second time. And God reminded me again that even if you do it 10 times, young man, you will fail 10 times. I did it the second time. Man, sir, I failed again. Not that same course, another course. Introduction to law. I thought I was sitting there beside a lawyer. A lawyer knows this thing well. So I've read about lawyer is seated next to me. I took my eyes away from the author of my story and moved it to the author of law. And I failed fantastically. And after that time, I said, no matter how difficult the exam is, I will read, enter, write. If I fail, God has failed. And to buttress that story, when I was in year 2, I was on a third class. And I had not defiled myself. I was committed to church. And I told God, when I went to see that result, I said, God, I'm reading, studying. If I fail, it is not me that is failing. It is you. Because people were not seeing me in that department. What they were seeing was what? God. They would say she is a church boy. And from that year 2, in year 3, I made the first class GPA, both first term and second term. Because 1, I didn't define myself. 2, I said, God, is your narrative. When they are talking, they will not say, Jide, they will say, that church boy. Hallelujah. So the power of the narrative that defines your story is important. Sometimes we get carried away by our situation. We get carried away by our condition. We forget what controls our narrative. So the question now is, ask yourself, in the last 2 weeks, what story have you been telling about yourself? Even to your friends. What story have you been telling about yourself? Even to your colleagues? What story have you been telling about yourself? Even to your kids? Because whatever story you tell about yourself becomes your reality. So, the second phase of this talk, I'm now going to walk as a consultant. I'm now going to walk you through how to actually tell a good story. How many of us want to learn that? How many of us want to learn that? You want to learn how to tell a good story? Because the truth is this, the leaders that change the world are good at telling stories. Mention any leader. Anyone. Anyone. Who is the leader you admire? Is there a leader you admire? You wanted to mention one. Go ahead. You don't admire any leader in the world? Okay, what about you? Do you admire any leader? You don't admire any leader. Wow, it looks like we don't have so much leaders in the world today. Michelle Obama. Have you watched Michelle Obama speak at any event? She tells a story about a family. She tells a story about her work. She tells a story about how she managed her garden, how she managed her relationship with Obama. And that's where a lot of people can relate with her. Right? So, to tell good stories, I will talk to you about 5 key techniques where if you follow those techniques, even as a novice, you will start to develop a good approach to tell a good story. The first thing is you have to have a good theme. And a theme is basically the topic. What are you trying to get people to learn? Right? So I'll talk through 5 things and then I'll go into each of them. The first thing is a good theme. The second is a character, the hero. Who is the hero in your story? The third is a setting. What is the situation? The fourth is the obstacle. What are the things that stopped you along the way? And then the fifth thing is what? The resolution. Before I go to the next slide, I've done a lot of interviews, countless interviews for people that are looking for jobs. And even while I was in EY, I did countless interviews with CEOs, board members, people that I would never have thought in my life that I would be sitting in the same room with them. But by the virtue of my job, I've been in rooms with these different people. When you're interviewing for a job, there's something they call STAR, S-T-A-R, right? And the approach to that answering question is, number one, the situation, right? Second is the task. What did you do? Third is what was achieved. And then last is what? Results. Did I get that correctly? Yeah. STAR. Right? And it's a way you structure your response when you're doing an interview that makes the interviewer see what you did. It's the same thing when you're telling a story. Right? So let's go through each of the elements. 5 key elements. Let's run through it quickly and then we'll be over. So the first thing is a good thing covers the main message. What is the lesson you want people to learn? What do you want people to learn in your story? So when I was doing my interview, the story that I was asked, the concern was, why should we give you this opportunity? And then I found the right story that showed that what? I could do this. Right? Instead of telling them that I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm very, we have all of those things in our CV. Very amazing things in CV. I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm very hardworking. Okay. How do you know you are very hardworking? You say, because I know I'm hardworking. No. Show us a situation where your hard work paid off. And that is where what? A story comes in. For the young people here, you'll be advancing in your career in school, and when you're done with school, you want to get opportunities. Learning how to tell a good story is what might make the difference between you and the next person standing next to you. So please follow this. What's your name, sorry? Michael. I like the way you're following me. It's like if I just face you and finish my session with you. Right? The first things first is you want to what? Find what's the key message or lesson you want to pass to your audience. What exactly do I want my audience to get from the story I'm about to tell? That's the first thing. It's like as we said earlier in Habakkuk, writing a vision and making it plain. So before you tell any story, you don't just go and start telling a story. For example, if I have people, everybody here are board members, and I'm going to start telling you a story about how I got my first job. I'm basically looking at me and saying, why do I care about how you got your first job? Like, why does that matter to me? Right? So knowing your audience and then writing your message clearly, this is what I want to pass to this audience, is a very key step in telling a good story. Because you can tell a good story to the wrong audience. You can tell a very good story, but to the wrong audience. And if you tell a good story to the wrong audience, what have you done? You've told a bad story. No matter how good it was. So that's the first thing. You have to know what story you're telling. And to who you are telling this story to. That's the first thing. So I think I messaged you, was it yesterday very early in the morning, because the week was very interesting to say more. And I messaged that who are the audience, who are the people that are going to be here, because for the kind of audience, there'll be different type of story that I'll tell. When I saw the range of the audience, and when I go here and looked at the range of audience, and yeah, apart from my Oga here, I knew that my journey to my first job was applicable, right? But it was my Oga and his group of friends that were here. My journey to my first job, they would say, do you think we are here to play? Right? So a good theme, which basically itemizes what the key message is and the lesson is. And of course, as I said, your audience. Always know your audience. Remember when he wanted to make his presentation to be assistant head boy? His audience were the people that are going to vote for him, which were the pupil. Imagine he's now saying, I'll reduce school bus money. When the students in the class, what they want to hear is, you increase our break time. Will he win the election or he will lose it? He what? He will lose it because he's telling the wrong story to the wrong audience. Let's look at the next element of telling a good story. So as we said, the common themes in literature, love, war, coming of age, redemption, all of these things are what your story can be based around, good or bad, family, faith and free will. Let's move to the next element, please. Your character. How many of us know the first character there? How many of us has watched Jagu Jagu? I need to promote our local content, so I cannot just be putting Marvel. We have our own local Panther, Black Panther, which is now Jagu Jagu. At least I'm happy we now have superheroes in Nigeria. This guy would pass for a local superhero. I think some of the other heroes, Thor, if you bring it down to Nigeria, is Shango. But they package Shango to us and called it Thor. But I think I'm trying to remember the location now, they also have God of War, God of Thunder. But in Africa, we have our own God of Thunder, Shango, but we've put it behind the scene and we're all talking about Thor. Do you know Shango? I know you do. What do you know about him? Sorry? He's a Yoruba god. I'm happy you know. Because we don't have to throw our culture in the lagoon. Yeah, and for those of you that watch Marvel and Disney, if these two were to fight, who will win? Just for fun of it. Who do you think will win? Which of these heroes will win? Sorry? DC, okay. We are the Marvel. You think, see the look on our face is like, what does he mean? Like, what is he saying? How will DC win? David, who do you think will win? DC will win. Chukwemeka, who do you think will win? Or you don't really watch cartoons? DC would win. Apart from Superman, I don't see who is that strong in this Marvel character. But anyways, the debate goes on. And then if you don't agree, take it to court. All right? So, but the point here is, life is a stage. And our passing through life is a journey. You know, when people die, they put from 1960 to... It's a canvas. It's a canvas. When people are standing around that from 1960 to, what is the story they are telling? What stories do you want them to tell about you? What story do you want in 5 years' time? Do you want people to tell about you? You're young, yes. But in 5 years, what do you want people to say about you? Have you ever thought of that before? You've never. Are you thinking about anything now? Something is coming to mind. Fantastic. In 5 years, what is the story you want people to tell about? I'll tell you another short story.
I've always told anybody that cares to hear that I'm going to be a governor in this country. How it's going to happen, I do not know. In short, when I was in school in year 1, I said I was going to be president of my department. I did not join politics. I did not do departmental politics. I did not do faculty politics until year 4, and I became president. I was class rep from year 1 to year 4. But I was class rep and president of the department. I spoke there was no magic to it. I spoke what I wanted. So my sister picked one of my pictures recently where we did our AGM, and she put it there, and she put future governor. I'm like, you are getting it. You are getting it. How it's going to happen, I do not know. Honestly, because I'm not involved in it. I don't even have any party card. I don't. But when you speak what you want into life, you will give life the responsibility to bring it to reality. Hello? I'm aspiring to perspire you here. I'm telling you practical things that actually happens based on the stories you tell. How powerful stories are. You are not too young to write your story for the next 5 years, my brother. You're not too young. You're not too young to write your story for the next 2 years. You're not too young to write your story. Nobody can write your story for you. You can write your story of where you want to be 5 years from now. So, and who is the main character in your story? Who is the main character in your story? What's me? I want to hear your name. Michael is the main character in my story. What's your name, please? What? Help me? Antara. It's a very sweet, special name. That's why I have to come and listen carefully. Right? You are the superhero, whoever superhero you admire. Those ones are in the film. In real life, you are your own superhero. You are your superhero. And do you know why you are your superhero? Because God has made it so. God has made it so. God has established it. So you are the super. So write your story. Write it. Let it be plain. Mommy, in 5 years, this is what I'm going to be. Let them laugh. In 5 years, you guys should have the conversation again. Because what? You are the superhero in your story. Tell yourself, I'm the superhero in my story. If you don't agree, you don't need to say it. But if you agree, say, I am the superhero in my story. You don't need to agree. I know it's not everybody that will leave here and agree that the superhero in their story. Sure, some people here, they are the villain in their own story. Some people with their words, they are telling stories that is even destroying them. Some people say, I can never work in a big four. I'm not that smart. Can you look back and remember when you said all those kind of things to yourself? I cannot finish with first class. I'm not that smart. Let's leave it for the people that are smart. The people that are smart, they have 2 heads, Abi. Yeah? I've always said this story to myself for many years. And I'm still in that journey where I said, I'm not very good at math. And one time, the Holy Spirit told me that, Jide, you are limiting yourself to how far you can go. And guess what? Whatever exam I wrote and I passed, it never felt so good. And God said, you know what you're going to do? I'm going to write GRE. That's one of the toughest maths in terms of the business world. I said, you are going to write it. And hello, sir. For the last couple of weeks, I've been waking up 5 a.m. to be battling this GRE math. 5 a.m. every morning. Most mornings. Some mornings, I'm not Superman. So some mornings, I'm super tired. So I catch some rest. But every morning, because I'm trying to change that word, narrative. Look into your life and say, what stories have I told about myself that is putting me at a disadvantage? And rewrite those stories. I tell people that, what if I don't become a governor? So what? Does that stop me from dreaming? I'll tell you a story of my very close friend from year 1. Dame Lade. His name is Dame Lade. We entered school together year 1. And Dame Lade from year 1, we always say we finish with the first class. First class. Year 1, he didn't finish with the first class result. Year 2. But guess what? Dame Lade finished as the top 3 students in the entire department. And recently, my friend Dame Lade, or Esonya, you can check him online, recently came up with another story. I'm going to go to the top school in the world. We studied mass comm together. I'm going to go to Harvard. Dame Lade, a boy from Ibadan, that his father is a pastor in his own church in Ibadan, said he's going to go to where? Harvard, one of the top 3 schools in the world. Demlade just resumed in Harvard this year. That is the power of your story. He says he wants to finish a 5.0. He never finished the 5.0, but he finished with the highest point possible. So why do we shortchange ourselves with the stories we tell ourselves? I'm not even talking about the stories you tell the world. The stories you tell yourself. Some of you, the stories you tell yourself about yourself. You tell it, if somebody is telling you about somebody else, you want to kill that person because how will you talk about someone like that bad? Some of us have told very powerful negative stories about ourselves. I'm not fine enough. Call me vain. When I look at the mirror, I say, Jide, you're a fine boy. Call me vain. I don't care. God made me wonderfully. I look at the mirror, and if you don't agree, that's your problem. That's my narrative. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about myself. So if you don't agree, move it along. Hello? Am I getting to somebody here? The power of your story. If you're in class today, why can't you aim for that first? Even if you don't get it, you tried. And you still, next time, you still say, you know what? My story, I want to make that first. If not, why not? If not, why not? But some of us have already defeated ourselves even before the term starts. See, I'll just manage 9th or 10th. Or maybe if I try, I'll get 4th. Trust me, you will not go beyond that 4th. The next thing, this is very important. That's why I spent a bit of time on that. You are the main character in your story. So in the next 1 week, in the next 1 month, in the next 1 year, what is your character going to be doing? What is the story you'll be telling about Michael in the next 1 year? I would love to hear it. Next. The next element is the setting. The setting will not change. Right? But my perception about the setting is founded in my thought about my setting. I'll explain that. Your setting can be Nigeria. Demlade, my very close friend's setting was the global stage, the world. He said, I'll be in the top school in the world. A boy that studied mass comm, University of Lagos. Not accounting, not economics, not sciences. But his story motivated me. Why? Because even when he was in school, he always say 5.0. He never got 5.0 in any term, not even in one term. But every term, his story never changed. Hello? I'm going to be a governor, whether this year happens, whether next election happens, it doesn't matter. The constant is that what? Babajide Adejumo is going to be governor. I'm saying it now, so I'm putting myself out. Right? Right? How is going to happen? I've put it, even my sister is already putting it there, future governor. We don't even know how it's going to happen because nobody in our family is a politician. But the same way nobody in our family was working in EY and God got me there, the same way nobody in my family has to be in politics before God can put me there. Hello? So, the setting, you can create yourself. How many of you have gone to watch a stage play? I love to watch stage plays a lot. How many of you have watched a stage play? The way they do the setting is what they want you to see. If you go there the next day, you will see a blank, what? A blank board. But like yesterday when I was here, there was parlor. There was even room. There was even hospital. So where did they all go? That was the setting. You can create your setting. You can create your what? Your setting. And in creating your setting, you will drive a lot of your action. Yesterday, after a long day at work, I got home at about 10. And Spirit of God was like, Jide, you are going for vigil. I'm part of Daystar's Reflection Drama Group. And I was like, you are going for the Reflections drama, vigil. I got home at 10. I lied on my chair for like 10 minutes, entered my car again to vigil. Because I'm creating my what? My story. And my story is that me and God, who said, I will never let you go unless you bless me? Jacob, pardon me. He said, I will not let you go. I know that I'm nothing without God, David. I know that if God lead me today, the same way life will use my eyes see. My mouth know if he talk am. There's an artist that said, I will pray, I will pray. I will pray, oh. If I don't pray, what will happen? Satan will make mess of me. And I know that that is my own setting. If I play with the things of God, the way devil will use, and I've experienced it. My sister, I have. More where I thought I was smart, I know book. Now me do and where I reach where I did. When devil starts with me, you know, remind me why I ran back to my source. Hello. So for some people, Christianity can be a religion. For some people, Christianity can be what their father and mother brought them to. For me, Christianity, not Christianity now, in short, my relationship with God is the core of my story. I'm a child of where? Zion. So if I'm going to claim the things of Zion, if my story is embedded around the things of Zion, it means that what? I have to stay connected. That passport, I'm not operating with Nigerian passports, my brothers and sisters. I'm operating with the passport of where? Heaven. And this is not gist. This is my experience. So when the things happening around me is not tallying with, I'll say, come, God, how far now? I'm a passport holder. My God is a fair God. His own government is not like the government you have around. It's not like the government in the US. It's not like the government in Nigeria. It's not like the government in any of the countries that you think is working. It's a perfect government. So I go back to my and say, God, I'm a passport holder of Zion. So what's up? What's going on? You said you will do this. You must deliver now. I pay my taxes. I pay my taxes. I serve. I serve in the kingdom. When I was driving here, I was like, God, this is service to you. It didn't matter the number of people I meet here. It is service to God. I woke up this morning, I said to go and play ball. When I play ball finish, I go home, had my bag. I'm like, I'm coming to Ajah. Hello. Because I'm not motivated by the setting around me. I'm not motivated by the fact that I've not slept. No. I'm motivated about the setting that has created me. The core of my story, which is God. So what drives you? What drives you as a human? What drives you as a person? What drives you to, I'm working till 10. When I was ICO, people leave by 4. 4 o'clock, people have entered staff bus and gone. By 9, I'm still in the office working. I'm not doing it for the company. I'm doing it because I'm not a citizen of that company. I am a representative of Zion in that company. And so I do my work not with the mentality of I'm collecting salary. I do my work with the mentality that, see, I'm God's representative here. When you know the core of your story, your approach to life changes. And that is why stories are powerful. Michael, I ask again, what is your story? What is the core of your story? If your story is based on what is your account balance, today it is high. Tomorrow it is low. Your mental health will be fluctuating with your core of your story, which is your account balance. If the core of your story is the wealth that you have, remember the story of the rich man. He said, now I have stocked up my barn. I will what? I will now relax and what? Marry. And the person that is the author and finisher of his story, the author will write that story where you won't change. He said, today, what is the core of your story? I'm sorry, I know I'm a consultant, but here, I'm doing my father's work. I'm doing my father's work. And even if it's just one person that lives here today and say, God, rewrite my story. God changed the names of people in the Bible. Why? Have you thought of that? Because he wanted to change their what? Their story. He called out things that were not as though they were. He said, before you were born, I knew you. So I knew your story. I have your scripts. I'm the author and finisher of your faith. I have your scripts. But some of us, we've rewritten our own story. We've rewritten our own story far away from the story that God has written for us. Let's go to the next thing. Obstacle. The reality is that in life, and that's why the journey of life is interesting. Job, his story was what? He was a wealthy man. And when the obstacles came, hello, sir, they did not just carry his money. They carried everything. But the core of Job's story was what? Is believe in God. And so when every story around him wasn't adding up, because of his stories were not centered around what was happening around him, he still stuck to the story, which is what? My God will provide my needs according to his riches in glory. If any man believe in Christ, is a new creature. No weapon fashioned against me shall prosper. If God can provide for the birds of the air, what about me? He would direct me. He would teach me in the way that I should go. We might throw the dice, but the Lord decides how it falls. So I understand that my story is already pre-written by God. I'm just acting the script. And so I have to constantly stay with the man that has my story. And so when the man that has my story says, Jide, I don't care how you are tired. Stand up and go for that vigil. Okay, I stood up, entered the car, went for the vigil. During the vigil, I was feeling rested. I went to the car and let me just rest 2 minutes. I knocked off. But some people that God has sent came to the car and said, Oga, we will not let you go. Wake up. There were obstacles. I was tired. That's an obstacle. There is no money. That's an obstacle. My health is shaky. That's an obstacle. Another story, as of 2 years ago, I used to have a very excruciating pain in my tummy. The pain can be as bad as I'll go under the shower, on the shower on my head, because I was feeling excruciating pain. I said, God, is this the story you've written about me? I carried my bag, went to Shiloh for 1 week. And I said, God, this story must change. 2 days to the end of Shiloh, my tummy was aching me like never before. And when they asked me what was going on, you know the story I said? I said, God is performing a surgery on me. I'm not telling you about someone's story, I'm telling you my story. I said, God is performing a surgery on me. I was feeling excruciating pain. I said, God is performing a surgery on what? On me. Since then till now, stomach pain. Where? How? When? When they say the faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, it looks like some of us cannot relate to it. We cannot, it looks like some Bible text. It's the story God has already written about you. You just need to align with it. There will be obstacles. There is no money. My health is shaky. There is no job. There is no house. See, I've searched. I've applied for 100 jobs. When I was going to apply for a role, I won't tell you guys the full gist, but I was applying for a role, and I said until I send 500 applications and they are rejected, I've not done my bit. How many of you have sent 500? But guess what? He didn't even reach 500. He sure he didn't even reach 50. But some of us, the fear of what will happen will not make us make that action. I don't care about the results. I care about the process and who is involved in that process with me. So there will be obstacles. I don't have the materials to read. I don't have school fees. I don't have this. I don't have that. My parents don't have this. My parents don't have that. There will be obstacles in your story. I've heard this over and over again. I worship under Pastor Sam Adeyemi. If there is no mess, there will be no message. If I didn't have that, the woman with issue of blood didn't have issue of blood. How would you just show that I can do miracle? If I didn't have that stomach pain for years, how would I know that I can claim my rights in the health industry in God's kingdom? There will be obstacles. Before a gold shines, a gold is gold, right? But in the raw form, it's not. It has to go through what? Fire. So are you going through fire and you're already complaining, God does not love me? What do you mean? What do you mean? God does not love you and I stay alive. You still have your 2 eyes, you still have your 2 legs, you still have your 2 hands. All you can do is lie down on your bed. God does not love me. Stand up and go and do something. There will be obstacles in life. There will be obstacles when you are in school. You are reading and it's not entering your head. Sleep, wake up, continue. Sleep. I'm saying something, Abby. You can relate with it. Sometimes you are reading. It's not, sleep, wake up. I was going to have an interview with a company and 30 minutes to the interview because I was having a lot of calls, a lot of things were going on. I started having an anxiety attack. First called my friend. We prayed on the phone first. When we dropped the phone, and I started playing Dunsi Oyekon. Do you understand? I started playing Dunsi.
And I started speaking in tongues. Locked myself in a room. 30 minutes. 5 minutes to the interview, I was still speaking in tongues. The Bible says that darkness cannot comprehend light. It cannot. But if you don't know, we say, I'm scared. I had to change the narrative. And the way I knew how to change the narrative was what? Because you can't see anxiety. You don't know where it's coming from. So I first put my phone on airplane mode. Started speaking in tongues. Because I wanted to what? Change the narrative. By the time reached, it was not high. But Christ in me that was taking over. Hallelujah. I think I'm already preaching. I'm supposed to talk on the power of storytelling. Next slide. So the story here is that there will be obstacles. Naira to dollar is an obstacle. Traffic in Lagos is an obstacle. Hello? Bad government is an obstacle. How will your light shine if there is no darkness? What is the use of light when there is no darkness? What is the use of good when there is no evil? You can't create a solution when there is no problem. So the fact that there is problem in Nigeria means that you are relevant. What is the story that you want to tell? Do you want to tell the story that the media is telling you to tell? That things are bad. They should increase fuel to 1.5. I will buy and I will drive to Ajah. Come and do what God has asked me to do and drive back home. Hello. I came from the mainland. K2. I drove here. Whether fuel is 1.5 or 2K, when God send me, I will go. Because my provision doesn't come from Tunubu. It doesn't come from Naira. It comes from the kingdom of heaven. And I'm not saying this now because I'm in PW, I'm a manager. No, I've been saying this since I was in school. My narrative is even. There's sometimes I'll go and be saying nonsense because I'm human. But a lot of times I have to do auto-reset. You know our mothers, when they give you slap, it's auto-reset. Sometimes you have to give yourself what? Slap. Catch yourself when you're telling narratives of yourself that is not what God has said about you. That's all I'm saying. Sometimes it might not make sense. Sometimes, you know, when you are sick and you say, just say I am well, and it doesn't make sense because the core of your story that makes it powerful is not in the things that are around you. What is what? Substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things, not what? Seen. No evidence. My brothers and sisters, no evidence. You go explain waiting. You go explain tire. Hallelujah. Let's go to the next thing, please. There's always a resolution. There is always what? A resolution. I'll know everyone's up to this. You even give me enough time. Thank you. There is always a resolution. See, I was playing boy about one and maybe 1 month and 2 weeks ago, and I had a huge cut. I wish I put that picture up. A huge cut on my face, and I was smiling on the pitch. And they look at me and say, why are you smiling? I'm saying, this is not how God made my face. It's going to go. I got to the hospital, and they were stitching it, and I wasn't moving. Because it's not what is happening at that moment, it's where I'm going. On this face. Can anyone see anything there? I think it was going to be 1 week later, I went back to that pitch to play ball and scored another goal. When I broke my hand, I said, this is not in playing ball. I play ball a lot. At least every Saturday morning. I broke my hand, and I was not bothered for 1 day. You know why? Because the person that created my hand did not create it broken. Now me go break them. But there's a manufacturer. And when you break your phone, they will do what? They will fix it. Right or wrong? So when I broke my hand, I wasn't worried. It would take time, no problem. But that hand, we go back to how it used to what? Be. Because I know the manufacturer now. Did you create yourself? Did you create yourself? Or you think it's your mom and your daddy that created you? They were just tools in your creation. Bible has said that the fools have said in their hearts that what? There is no what? They play. Esma. Michael, say they play. They play. You have said in your heart there is no God. They play. Me, I know there is God and I'm taking advantage of it. The hand reset. Oh, this is the hand. I've even broken more things. I'm like Jackie Chan. I've broken more things in my body because I know that my God will fix it for me. He will fix it. I'm his baby. He will fix it.
When I'm broke, I'll drink my gari with joy because I know that gari will be nutritious to my body. When Daniel said he will not defile himself, the king's people were eating what? All they are salted and everything. Daniel was eating what? Vegetable. And he was what? Fresher. You guys are not getting it. It's not about what I eat. It's about the person that is in me. So I will eat, I will drink. There were days when I drank my gari and I drank it with all joy. Because when the gari gets inside, it is what God will do, my body will do, my body. Hello. That is my story. In finance, my story is I will never lack. Not because I'm hard working, not because I'm the smartest person, because God has said he will provide my need according to his riches in glory. That's my story. My account balance might not look like it. My job role might not look like it. The economy might not make it look like it, but it doesn't matter. The Bible says he's not a man that he would lie. He has said it. He will do it. But some of us, we get lost in all of the conditions in the world. And some of us, when we get on the road where we say that Jide was just speaking English. Is it my story that will change this traffic? The traffic will not go anywhere. But your interpretation of the traffic is what makes a difference. Hello. How the resolution is how the hero in the story surmounts his challenge, and I put or not. Because a lot of us, we stay in those challenges. We stay there. Those obstacles I mentioned, those shark. We see the shark and we're like, yeah, shark. I'm not going again. No, let me just stay where I am. It's comfortable here. I should go and face shark. Remember Peter, when Jesus was walking on water. How many of us remember that story? He said, Jesus, can I come? You know, we're always very joyful and we want to explore. Can I come? Jesus said, yeah, come, my guy, come. Show. Peter stepped on the water. And then he got carried. Have you been to the beach before? You see how the beach makes a lot of noise when he's slamming the wall. Peter loses focus on his story. The person that has asked him to. In Yoruba, they'll say that you're not scared of the person you are going to meet. You are scared of the person that sent you what? Message. Abi? Ma'am, correct, Abi? So if God has said I'm a royal priesthood, who is saying otherwise? If God says I'm wonderfully made, who is saying otherwise? If God said I'll provide for you according to my riches in glory. Riches in glory. My account balance doesn't tell you how much I have. Or if you want to know how much I have, go to the scriptures. Mindset. I think it's Apostle Selman that said that some people are living in one room, but in their head, they're already in mansion. You can't stop those kind of people. Sooner or later, they're getting there. Hello. Your resolution is already defined as Christians. It doesn't matter what you go about your day tomorrow, next tomorrow. It doesn't matter. The Bible says, my thoughts for you are of good and not of evil, to bring you to what? An expected end. The Bible says that the expectation of the righteous shall not be cut short. That means there's an expected end. No matter how long the Israelites spent in the wilderness, there was a what? A promised land. And what made them not get to the promised land early? It was their actions. It was their what? Their actions. So if you are not getting to your promised land early, check your what? Your actions. Because the story you are playing out, does it align with the story that God has written for you or not? Hello. So if there's something you're expecting God to do for you and he has not done it, check your actions. Because he has said, my thoughts for you are of good and not of evil, to bring you unexpected. One of the major things I wanted to achieve here today is reading your Bible is not an activity. It's establishing the story that is the core to how you live. So reading your Bible is not, those stories enable your faith. Sometimes I'll say, if God cannot fail, Babajide Adejumo, you cannot fail. Because the Bible says that me and God, we are one. The Bible says I'm a smaller God. They play. You know how you buy an iPhone and the only thing you use to do is make call. You've not read the manual. You carry iPhone 14. Maybe they use a shoot a whole film that you need to make call. Some of us are underutilizing ourselves because God has a story. He told Jeremiah, he said, before you were born, my dear, before you were born, God knew you. Before you were born, God has written your story, and your story is amazing, my brother. It is. But what story are you living? What story are you telling? Are you telling your story based on the word of God, or you are telling your story based on what? What is happening around you? Please, everybody say, they waiting. When you are ready, carry your Bible and find out what God says about you. So your resolution for the world, it can be determined by how much you have in their bank account. It can be determined by how smart they are. For me, my resolution is determined by who? God. Because he has an expected end. And he has told me the expected end is for good and not for evil. So when my car stops on Third Mainland, I'm smiling. I'm not joking, I'm smiling. Number one, I know that nobody can come and rob me there. They don't burn you. Secondly, I know that, and the 2 times my car stopped, it stopped right next to a police station at the junction of my house. I was driving it from the whole Third Mainland. And that's when I got to a safe space. Hello, the engine went off, and I just off the car. And I came down, took Keke to my house. Hello. There was another time when I was in Aiko, my car was going to stop. I did not know. I'd carried the car. I'd gotten to Ozumba. Hello. And as I got to Ozumba, I realized I forgot my phone. I went back to the office to carry my phone. As I go back to the office and carry my phone, car did not enter reverse again. I just packed it around 9. Came down. My mechanic came to pick me, drop me at home. Bible says that those that know their God will do exploits. What that is basically saying is that your story should be defined by who you know. I entered EY because of who I know. I don't know any politician. I don't know any partner. But I knew who? I knew God. Hello. I'm about to say, how are you? Right? Because I knew God. And so that's why my relationship with God, sometimes when I mess up, I quickly cry back to God and say, God, do not leave me nor forsake me. Yesterday, the person I was preaching said we should run around this star 8 times. If for those of you that feel like we are stuck and all that, and all the prayer was just praying that God, do not leave me nor forsake me. Run him. I'm sharing this not to say, oh, because I run. No. It was a commitment to say, God, please bring me back to you. Please, this is not how I planned that this session will go. But as I said, I'm just a vessel that God will use. I had how I was going to present. As consultant, you have to have your... When I was coming, I was already saying this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do. When I got here, before I say that, I was talking to my friend. I said, should I start with my name? Or because I had everything structured. That's how we do it in consulting. There's templates. When I got on here, God said, is it your own you want to do? Or my own? So I've done what God has asked me to do. And the question today for you, I didn't come here by chance. If I was supposed to do this, as I've done it online, or even say I'm not even doing it again, say it was too far. But nothing is too far when it comes to the work of God. So the question today, my brother, my sister, my friend, what is your story? What has been your story? I don't care. But what will be your story going forward? There's something called storyboarding. Have you heard about it? Storyboarding, where you have a board. And you say, you know what, I'm going to be in whatever college in this year. I put it on your storyboard. And then you say, like me, I will put I've not done my storyboard yet, but what will do? I will put governor. How many of you call me your excellency? Call me your excellency now, so that everyone can register it. Your excellency. And I'll be excellent, actually, because I'll be serving the kingdom. So, guys, next slide, please. The last thing I'm going to say today is this. Live your life in a way that is worth telling stories about. I've told you several stories about my life. So there are a lot of stories I could have picked from the Bible. But God has been working with me in so many ways that I told you a story when I dropped my laptop and I was crying. Hello? Live your life in a way that is worth telling stories about.
Thank you very much. I was supposed to take question. Sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to take question. Let's just leave that power statement and just go like that. But yeah, I'm very open to take questions. Please, questions? If I cannot answer, I'll defer to my guy here or my guy here. You know, in Yoruba, they'll say, I can't pay God. I used to say that in Yoruba. Who can help me? Huh? You can help me. Okay, you have a question. Mother, how you be asking me a question now? Maybe she will ask me a question and she will answer it on behalf of everybody. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so David said we should pause. My question is this. You said that you tell the story and allow God. I'm coming from the perspective, we know we're in church and we are children of God. There's the other part of it. I think there's a balance, but I'm not sure, right? God completes it. Like you gave examples, several examples of your stories, different stories. You just say something and you do what you're doing without any particular attention towards that direction. And it happens. There is the school of thought, or rather, even with scriptures, that says you need to do things. I want a balance because we also have younger ones here so that they don't just think there's magic. You understand? There's magic. So I'm trying to put the question properly. Now, is it that you were not doing anything at all? Or there were things you were doing, but not necessarily as though like the white people or the Western world? Correct me, please. Is this Vanessa Williams? Okay, so there was that one was very direct. Wanted to be the best tenant, and so everything was direct. It was very direct, training and the rest of it. Now tell me, where's the balance in this is my goal? Is there a magic that just takes you from that? I've told myself the story. I want to be, okay. Let me use myself for an example. Right from when I was young, I defined success as this. This is my story. Success to me is not how much money or what my title or office I hold. Success to me, I defined success as a child, is how I've impacted the next generation. That's success to me. And I saw it as a little child as the mother role, the role of a mother that guides. And so I said to myself, if I fail as a mother, I'm not a successful person. So, and there are things that I have done towards that, yes. So my question is it automatic? Is it bam or there's something? Whether directly or indirectly. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that question. And I think it's good that you asked that because to create that balance. So a lot of the stories I shared, right? For example, the fact that, let's pick any of the stories. I was going to move to PwC after 2 years. In my first day of joining ICO, I had written my CV. I had done research on all of the people that are managers, the role I wanted to get. I had written all that they had done in their profile. And I'd used that to update my CV. Right? For 2 years down the line. And I started working backwards. Let me explain that. So what I want to have done in my CV in 2 years' time, I wrote it down today. Because I know that in 2 years, I want to be where? In PwC. I clearly said PwC. I wrote the CV 2 years before of the things that I needed to do for PwC to see my CV and say, this guy is the candidate you are looking for.
2 years before. And then after writing it, I didn't just write it down and go and put it somewhere because you have to be able to defend the CV you've written. I started doing all those projects. And so when I say I leave the office at 9, it's not my CHR that I say I should leave at 9. It's not the MD because they've even left at 4. It's what is driving me, what I've written down that I want to do by the end of 2 years that drove me to be at the office 9, 10. So my brothers, my sister, it is hard work. It is hard work. So all those things I wrote, by the end of 2 years, I was checking them, deployed learning management system for the company. Did this, did that. Out of maybe like 10 things, I had done like 7 or 8 of them. The remaining 2, I took it out from the CV. And when the opportunity came, so preparation met opportunity. So when there was an advert for a role in PwC, my CV was a good match. So even before I did the interview, I know I was going to get the job because I had seen what people in that role were doing, and I trained myself within 2 years to meet that requirement. And I knew that working from 8 to 5 cannot meet it. Because people that work in consulting don't work 8 to 4. They don't work 8 to, they work 8 to 10. So I started in consulting. I was used to work till 12 a.m. And I'm not exaggerating this. And I'll be back in the office by 5. So when I say that, the Bible says that faith without work is what? Is dead. If I say that because I've had a commitment with God, I will not cheat in the exam and I don't read, hello, you will fail majestically. Bible says that the Holy Spirit will bring all things to your remembrance. It is what you've read that the Holy Spirit will bring to your remembrance. If you've not read it, you are a blank slate. The Holy Spirit cannot bring anything to your what? To your remembrance. Hello. So there is the work that goes in with prophesying. So in terms of the governorship thing, some of the things that I'm doing towards that is, for example, I was class governor for four years. I was what? President of my department. Now, even in the roles I'm taking as an employee, I'm thinking like a governor and saying, what are the things I can do now that when the opportunity presents itself, I can say, oh, this and this and this and this is what I've done to prepare me for this opportunity. So I volunteer, teach for Nigeria, I'm a volunteer there, you can confirm. Slum to school, I'm a volunteer, giving back to society. So that people, the young kids in 5 years will say, I know Jide now. Jide came to my school. When I was in EY, I was part of leading them to go and teach in schools in Lagos Island. Because when I do my campaign, it's some of those boys and girls that I'll say, we know Jide. So every of my action is informed by what? The vision. So I'm not just acting. The reason why I chose to come here is not because you told me a nice invite. I said, God, does this align? He says, go. When David was going to chase, he said, God, should I chase? And God says, chase and you recover what? All. So my coming here is not because, David, you sent me email or no. Yes, that was the link. But I had to check where I'm going and say, God, does this align? So when I was driving here, someone was coming, like, this place is far. I was just smiling. It's part of my story. Hello? It's part of my what? My story. So what are you willing to do to achieve that story? So the story is where I'm going. There's a process. And I think I mentioned something that I don't really care much about the outcome. The outcome is not within my control. It's out of my control. What is within my control is the things that I do daily. I told you about going to vigil. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And when I woke up, I said, this exercise I do is good for my health. I went to play the ball, and I've not slept till now. And I'm not exaggerating it. But I knew how to be here. So it's hard work, man. Maybe the kids did not hear me. Maybe I don't want to glorify the work. It's hard work. But I'm saying that what sustains me in doing this hard work is the vision of where I'm going. If not, there are some things I would not do. How would I drive to Ajah if it's just for pay? I just want to come and speak English. Are they going to pay me if my focus was what? Money. But some people are driven by money, so their decisions are based on what? Financial gain. Some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the core of your story. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people, their core of their story is, this is where God is taking me. The vision. So that's why I get home and God is saying, you can't sleep. You have to go. And I stand up tired, weak, and still going. That's what drives me. So I put in the work daily. Daily. But what gives me the strength is God and the vision. And that's why the Bible says that write the vision. Make it plain. But it's not just about making it plain. It's so that everyone that sees it, they will not walk. They will run. The vision will not achieve itself. You have to run to achieve it. Hello? I think I need to make that clear. You have to run. Faith without work is dead. Go to ICO today and ask about Babajide Adejumo. I stayed there for just 2 years. Almost everyone knows me. And it's not because I speak good English. I was running when I was there. And people were closing 4. I was closing 9, 10. How many people do that in their organizations today? They'll say they're not paying me enough to stress myself like this. But I want the fact that tomorrow when I come out for governor, even the MD of ICO will say, I know that boy. I moved into PwC and ICO went with me to PwC as a client. Is it by faith? It's by work. It's by work. He had told me that as you're going to PwC, you continue doing my work. Oh. I mean, I was interviewing PwC, I said, see, I have to continue doing ICO's work. It is work. Hard work. But the truth is that a lot of people are not motivated because there is no vision driving them. So when things are hard, when they see the obstacles, when they see the shark, they don't see the resolution. They don't see the other side of the sea. They don't even know what it looks like. So it's not motivating them. So they do what? They turn back. But when you know that the promised land is flowing with milk and honey, you see shark, you say, shark, like me and you today. It's me and you. They give you a task in the office. Everybody is saying that, this is too hard. You say, because I know where I'm going, and this person's testimony of me tomorrow matters. This shark, now me and you. Everybody, the sharks in your life, tell them now what? Now me and you. Because I'm not going back. I'm not going back to Egypt. Babajide Adejumo is not going back to Egypt. I'm going to the promised land. And I will do all the work that it requires to get to the promised land. And the question is, what I was trying to buttress was you have to be clear on what your promised land is. But the children of Israel were in the wilderness for how many years? 40 years. The average man that says, come, they did not chase me from Egypt. In short, there were several times when they were saying that we want to go back. At least they were giving us food in Egypt, right? They were giving us food. We were comfortable in Egypt now. So why are we going to where we don't even know? That's what the general public, that's what's happening in Nigeria now. Everybody just say, because they don't know what the promised land would look like. And the promised land cannot be defined by people. Your promised land is defined by you. But then you know you have to do the work you have to do to get to that. So the question is, what is your promised land? Which is what? Your story. How does your story end? Does your story end with you earning 50,000 naira? If that's how it ends, then you can't do beyond earning 50,000 naira. Some people work based on what they are earning. I work based on the fact that I'm going to be CEO someday. So I cannot work like a mere entrapper. I cannot work like an employee. No, it will not cut it. I remember one time I was complaining when I got to jump. I'm like, this work is too hard, God. This work is too hard. And God said, if you are struggling to manage this portfolio of business, how would you manage the portfolio of business we talked about? Hello, I shut up immediately. I shut up because, and what I asked God was then, God, give me what? Capacity. Give me capacity to do more. Because I'm complaining about this small thing. I am managing how many staff, how many team members, and I'm complaining. How would I manage a business of so amount if I cannot manage 5, 6, 7, or 8 projects? I'm going to be CEO of something billion. I have to be able to manage more than 200, 500 staffs. So they don't complain. Look for ways to get it done. So, madam, it's hard work. Right? Write the vision. The second thing is make it plain. But the third thing, which is very important, is what? Run. It's the Lord that giveth victory. It's the Lord that giveth. Whether I'm going to be governor tomorrow is in God's hands. The fact that I will not even be alive. But what I can do is today, anybody that encounters me knows that this guy is a governor material. So tomorrow, when I carry my placard, I don't even need to talk too much. People are already carrying it around because they've encountered me. So in my work, in my church, when people, the person that recommended me to you, I don't know, I've never seen her before. I don't know who recommended, I've never seen her before. But I've spoken somewhere, and they were like, Jide is the right person to do this. Ripple effect. In 5 years, I want more people to be saying, God is with this boy. So at the end of the day, the question again is, what is your story? I don't know if there's any other question.
You have a question here. If you can answer it within 2. Okay, there are more questions.
I'll just be very brief now.
Okay, so the question is, so you've told us many stories about yourself. If I'm not mistaken, close to 7 or 10 stories, right? there is an ability to articulate your stories, but there are some people you meet and you ask them and they tell you they can't really remember their stories. They can't recall. Some of them very advanced in age, but they don't know how to tell these stories. So what are the recommendations you'll give on how one can put his story together and even understand how far he has come in life to be able to give good advice,
Thank you very much. I'm going to be very, very brief, not going into details. What keeps me in that space of gratitude? Sometimes I complain, but what snaps me out of that quickly is my record of what God has done. Now, in telling your story, you don't have to be perfect. It is your story. Remember what I said when I said I'm a fine boy? Agree or disagree. Anyhow you know how to tell your story. I've given you template on how to tell a story, but leave that template. Anyhow you know how to tell your story, tell it. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. There is a professional way. If I was teaching you how to tell there's a professional which I've talked about. Have your theme, have your character. Then there's a journey from where did you start, what was the situation, what did you do, what did you encounter, what was trying to stop you, and what did you do to break that challenge, and what was the result. That's the journey, right? This is the situation. This is what's trying to stop me. Point 1, I avoided it. Point 2, I avoided it. Point 3, challenge 3, I avoided it, and this is my result. That's a simple template, right? The situation, what tried to stop you, what tried to stop you, what tried to stop you, the result. That's a simple template. But as I say, to improve on how you tell your story, tell your story to yourself first. Does it even make sense to you? Then tell it to the closest person to you. Does it even make sense? Does it inspire the person? Because your story has to have a purpose. Does it inspire the person? Does the person learn something from your story? As mothers, can we tell our kids stories that happened to us while we were kids that would actually help them in their journey through life? That's the power of stories. Because you tell them, don't do this. The average kid will ask you, especially these modern children, they will ask you why. When I was young, my mother said, don't do this. They don't born me and 3 other people join together with me to say why. Is it that slap, abara, or knock that you will get that will give you control setting? But now they will ask you why. I was going with my niece, she did this power course in PwC, and we're going, and I took another route. And I said, Babajide, why are we going this route? I said, we want to get ice cream. They're like, okay. When my mother is driving me or my uncle, I'll ask you, why are we going this route? Who are you? What effrontery? But in these days, they will ask. Try and say, don't do this, do this. Tell them stories, true stories, of maybe times when you struggled with academics. If it's academics challenge, I struggled with academics. But our parents then, all of them finished with first class. And they were first in class, always. So we don't know the truth or not about their journey. But this time, we have to tell them real stories. I hope that answered your question. I think you can just...
Oh, okay. All right. So thank you, sir. In a corporate setting, corporate setting, I've seen a lot of managers, CEOs. And honestly, I appreciate, when, as it were, in their strides, a story just comes in and then they make their point. And I'm not like that, but I want to be like that. All right, so this helps. And then I'm asking, so how do I prepare for that? So do I have to, on my own practice, have a set of, stories that can come in handy, and then knowing the right one to say or use in that instance? Yeah, so I can practice and have a set of stories that are ready to go, right? Okay, and then the second one is you mentioned something like when you are assessing maybe like HR, so you have STAR, STAR. So what's that A again? I didn't get that A.
STAR model is what you actually use for interviews. Like when they ask you a question, the situation, the task, that's the achievement, and then the results, right? So, for example, I mentioned my selling of newspaper. The situation was we're creating newspapers in the department for convocation, and the last set struggled to even sell 2,000 newspapers. And I was given the responsibility to sell 4,000 newspapers. That's the situation. What was my task? To sell newspaper. What did I achieve? I created a structure around team to position people in the right position to sell this newspaper, and also created a good accounting system to track records of what was sold so that we can account for all those things. And what was the result? We sold all 4,000 newspapers. So you see, the situation, what was the task that you were required? So the situation was we needed to sell. The situation was there was a struggle in selling newspapers in the department because they struggled to sell 2,000 in the prior year. But in this year, I'm tasked with selling 4,000 newspapers. I did A, B, C, D, and the result I achieved is I sold the whole 4,000 paper, achieving 100% result, and accounted for every kobo. So that's the star model. So if you talk to an interviewer in that pattern, it shows a good, clear way of thinking, right? So that works for interview. And then for your stories, I feel like if I'm going to tell stories for my work now, if I'm interviewing with people, I'm telling them a story about ICO, the work I did. I'm not telling them a story about myself, because that's what they care about in an interview with PwC. But here, I'm sharing personal stories because we are talking about individual and how we can inspire ourselves to move forward. Thank you very much. I think you wanted to ask a question. Okay, please.
It's a question, but it has been answered. I want to still share it. Just this week, the place of parents in guiding children to success. That was my question. Okay. But I just want to share it because this week I got the experience. After I have penned down, I signified to attend this program, the thing come upon me. My daughters don't normally say the Lord's Prayer. They'll say to a point and they get stopped. But during the week, I was just like thinking, meditating, how do I help this girl to capture this thing and do it even in my absence? So I took a full paper sheet and write the Lord's Prayer boldly that she can see every word and say it. So I wrote it and I gave it to her. I read with her. And I will tell you, right from these few days now, she has been able to bring down the younger ones to their knees and say these prayers. So the place of parents in guiding their children to success is very important. Let me just give an experience. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer because I like the word barrister. But one circumstance or the other could not make me to achieve it. But my uncle called me after 6 years of my first WAEC. Said, I learned you are brave in school. Okay, come and take NECO. I wrote NECO, I made it. He said, you are so brave. Okay, take JAM, I made JAM. He said, why are you then wasting all this time? So that is what brought me back again to education line. Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing. Please be as together for him. I hope you can still chase that law career. You can still do it. No, don't shake your. If you have a good reason why you want to chase it, you can. One of the reasons why I have not gone for my MBA in a while now is because I'm saying that that GRE. But now I have decided, God helping me, that I will face that GRE. And it's a shark in front of me right now. That's my own shark. And I'm facing my shark. And whether he will conquer me or I will conquer it, we will see. But the person that is behind me, right? The person pushing me, if the shark can beat that person, then I give up. Right? But I have to do the work. I say I wake up 5 a.m. every morning. God is my witness. Some days I don't. Sometimes maybe 5 a.m. every morning. But every day I'm supposed to read from 5 to like 7, 8. Sometimes I might not read from 5 to 6, but I'll be constant with that 5. So maybe 5% of the time I'm not. So that is my walking. That's my running. I know the vision. If you look at my phone, the school I want to go to is everywhere. It's there. It's on my phone. It's on my laptop. It's on my wall. It's in my toilet. It's in my kitchen or my fridge. That this is where I'm going. That is my promised land. This GRE will not stop me. Because when I want to run for government, I want to say that I've gone to the best school in the world. I've worked with the best companies. And I've supported the best companies in the world. That's my narrative. And nothing will stop me from getting that narrative. Not even GRE. We will conquer it. So whatever is standing in front of you today, what is in you is bigger than what is in the world. And if your vision is clear and you are running with it, let me see what can stop you.